What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about being a fifth-year student in Hogwarts. What would that be like, or what that is going to be like in the game, if that's truly what we're signing up with it, okay? So this is something I've wondered for a while. I've seen people kind of ask it here and there in terms of, how do people talk to you? What's your power level at? Skipping school, basically, or just not knowing, right? What is kind of the setup behind that? So that's the stuff I want to go into in this video. I am trying to put together some lists of things I want to talk about with Hogwarts Legacy. I know on Retro Raconteur's channel, we talked about like questions that we were still kind of waiting on. I'm thinking of doing maybe a slightly, tweaked version of that, or some other kind of like, here's a bunch of things of this or that. So if you guys want any kind of like list videos or anything really in particular, definitely let me know in the comments below. I'd love to make them. I do think we're nearing something within the next 4-ish months, closing out this year, and I think we're gonna enter a phase of just talking about news and discussion with the game. But until then, we still got a little bit of time left, and so now is the time to kind of knock off anything that you guys want me to, right? So all right, let's talk about this. So I honestly feel like the potential here is really big. I think it's a really cool situation. Now, it does depend on how they do it, right? Because, again, I've seen people say, all right, well, you're a fifth year. And let's just, I guess for the sake of the video, we're going to have to assume you are a fifth year. You know what I mean? There's been the rumors for a very, very long time. Well, I'm not going to say, like, if you, okay, maybe I will. You look at the trailer, can we look into, like, the ages of the kids in the, like, can we tell a video game age? Like, do they look 11 or do they look a little bit older than that? I do believe you're going to be older. And I've actually made the case for the game. I did it for them, and I'd love them to kind of just re-say what I've said, where it's like, you could play as an 11-year-old, sure, but don't you want to play as like a 15, 16-year-old where, I don't know, like, you can have love, you can have a romantic interest in somebody, you can have critical like things happening to you, and just, even basing off the Harry Potter books and the movies and stuff, there's a clear, I would say even like after 1 or 2 and then going on to like 3 and 4, especially 4, the jump in kind of the age of 4, right? Harry kind of growing up, it's like enormous. And then you really get to 5, and 5s in terms of like what they're handling, right? The pressure and all the stuff that they go through in their fifth years. I mean, it's insane. And I don't really think you can imagine them doing that as a first year. You're just too young, you know what I mean? So I've made that case many, many times. I do think it just, in terms of conversations with friends, again, like romantic interest, teachers, a villain, a really deep villain, right, that can maybe test you, maybe, you could see why they're good in their own way, but obviously they're a villain to us. I don't know how much you would get out of that if you were literally an 11-year-old versus, a little bit older, and you age, there's a lot of things that advance in you as you age, even in that short period of time. So I do believe, okay, you're a fifth year. Now, why? Why are you, and so I think what people may get confused, and I'm not saying like I'm a prophet or I know everything or, that my ideas are so good, but what I would imagine is you're a fifth year simply because of your age. It's just the way that you're kind of referring to yourself, like you're literally going in what would commonly be your fifth year of Hogwarts. It's just your age. So you're like 15, 16, right? And I do think, based off the hints we kind of get with, like, you hold like such immense power in you, and you don't really know what it is. Maybe you can't control it. Obviously, it's the key to something like a lot greater. Kind of cliches in a lot of different mediums and games and movies, but like a valid one, like this is a solid one to kind of dip your toes in, right? But that's very much something of like almost like a Big Bang, right? Like you wake up one day and all of a sudden there's just this magical explosion where this kind of happens to you. And we've kind of actually seen that element played out, right, in the Fantastic, even like with Credence, right, in the Fantastic Beasts storyline, where these things can kind of just happen, or you can be holding on to such immense power that maybe you're not even aware of. Now, I'm not saying you're literally going to be like that, in Fantastic Beasts, but it's a play on it where you could understand where they're coming from. So that's how I would imagine it. I at the same time, though, I will give you this. If you've never used powers before and you go into the world and you're a fifth year, you're starting from scratch. So a question the game needs to, and I mean, the game has probably already figured this out. In fact, no, not probably. The game has figured this out. You need to know if you're going to start us out from nothing, or do we have kind of baseline knowledge of the wizarding world, but also like how to play. Because if you think about it, right, like you're gonna be playing the game, you're gonna be casting spells, you're gonna be doing that in missions, you're gonna be doing that in side quests, you're gonna be doing it maybe just in free roam, like you can just use random spells around Hogwarts. Like these are things that are literally essential. It would be like Witcher 3, but you don't know how to swing a sword in the beginning, right? It's the third game, but even the first Witcher, like it's not like Geralt doesn't know how to swing a sword, or even like Dragon Age, right? Like you start with base powers. It's not like you start from nothing. So that's an interesting one. That actually almost goes completely against what I just said, right? Because so I would kind of see a blend to it. I would imagine the game starts probably through like just cutscenes. Like I don't think you would necessarily control it, although maybe you do, and you do kind of awaken this power inside you, but you had never used it before. So you had no knowledge of wizardry or whatever, and then all of a sudden you do. And you use it to an okay extent, and then somehow you get kind of like scouted, right? Or they sense it, or however they do it, from Hogwarts, and you kind of get, you get recruited in, and you're a student. And you would have a little bit of knowledge of how to use spells and stuff like that. I could imagine that's a fair kind of middle point, because I don't think it makes sense to be like, well, you've had magic and you've been doing magic kind of secretly under the table since you were 11, and you just kind of like skipped through, like nobody noticed. You hid it from everybody, but you did it, and now you're gonna go in your 5th year without, so I don't think that's the greatest idea. But from like a game mechanic perspective, it also makes no sense to go into it and have zero clue of how to do literally anything, unless you teach everything in the first like 1 hour of the game. Like they literally teach your character, not just like they tell you, okay, R2 is the casting button. No, like they literally have to tell your character it's Leviosa, not Leviosa, or and they have to go through that entire, the entire thing, and that's going to be quite a chore to pull off. So that's how I kind of would see it playing out. I think it's the best of both worlds, and I do think, again, like the potential there is pretty enormous, because imagine, and again, it is like a cliche, right? Almost like you are the chosen one. You're like this some power, because you're the main character, so you're a very important person, and you go in and you're very important. You hold all this power, but it's like, well, bro or ma'am, right? You're coming in and you don't know anything about, you've never been in here, and you're older. We've all been here for years. We've formed these friendships, and we've talked about romantic interest. That's something that plays into that. We've talked about just conversations with people, friend groups, right? In general. What's that like? What's that like entering a world? It's literally like it's worse than this, but it'd be like, say you go to a different school, or you're in a school until like 2nd or 3rd grade, and then you go to a new school. Well, there could be kids that have been there since pre-K or kindergarten. Now all of a sudden you're there, but they've been together for 3, 4, 5 years. Now imagine that, but imagine you didn't even know what school was, and you jump in at 3rd or 4th grade, level, right? It's like that. I mean, it's not like you've never seen a person before. Maybe your character went to like normal, like nor a human school, right? But they've never been in that world before. So I think that opens up loads of like cool dialogue, ideas or possibilities with like friend groups, romantic interests, teachers, all that stuff. The villain, right? I think it really is going to be pretty cool. So that's how I could see it playing out. That's how I could see even the beginning of the game playing out, to be flat out honest with you. It always gets me excited talking about it, honestly, and so I definitely want to hear from you guys, though. I could be completely off base, and maybe you guys have better ideas than me, which I'm sure some of you absolutely do. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Make sure, as always, you guys are subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. I try to do a new Hogwarts video every 5 or so days. I normally keep that. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 4, but it's normally around that 5 or so day mark I do a new video. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, or subscribe to my second channel, or support us on Patreon or YouTube memberships, the links for all of those are in the description below, okay? Again, I'll be continuing to cover it. If you guys have any ideas for me or any suggestions that you want me to cover, I'll absolutely do it. And then, obviously, if there's any leaks, any news, like official news on the game, I'll 100% be covering all of that, okay? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all on the next video.